any clues that you guys wouldn't jump on right away and come up with his name. He's a member of our club and very distinguished member of the club, S.J. Morrison. So S.J., you all know him. I'm not going to belabor that, and we all know and love him. So go ahead, S.J.
All right. Thanks, Musanda. All right. Hi, everybody. And hi, everybody on online as well. So take you back to those bygone pre-COVID days of 2018. A local landmark was deteriorating. And I've shared this with you before. I happened to stop by in September. It was a sunny Saturday in September with my little boy, Schaefer, who was 3 at the time. And he was just so excited about trains and about this train station, about the prospect of we could fix this up. And I thought, you know what? I've been on this train before. Let's give it another shot. So time to get back on track. But why? I had to make a compelling case to the community about why this thing was worth saving. And in my opinion, there were still stories to tell, children to educate, visitors to inform, and a community to engage. Getting in the weeds a little bit, there's also value in preserving some of our architecturally significant assets. They're not building 1883 train stations like this anymore. It's got some great stories to tell. This was a really vital part of Edwardsville's history for close to 80 years. This is how one of the ways, there were 5 train stations in Edwardsville. This was one of the ways that people and freight and goods came and went in our community. Found a friend in the Edwardsville Children's Museum who was looking for a way to age up their programming, looking for a way to expand their programming. And so they were happy to participate. And I also want this to be a visitor center for the community. I want this to be a place where people come, get information about our community and about its history, et cetera. And I don't want to discount the fact that people's lives changed in train stations. This is a great photo from 1917. This is a group, 172 service members left from our station to head off to World War I. And about 40 of those individuals did not return. So for multiple wars, not just World War I, the Nickel Plate Station was a place where our troops left for war. It was a place where people saw their loved ones for the last time. It was a place where people went off to start, in some cases, new lives, new careers, new adventures, and would never return and would never see loved ones again. So there's a lot of great stories in this station. March 2019, the city of Edwardsville voted to accept the station and agreed to renovate it using tourism funds, which come from our hotel motel tax. Then we had to find a place to put it. It's been on blocks since 1991. The Goshen Preservation Alliance moved it from its original location because the railroad was coming through and tearing everything down. And so we needed to move it. So in 1991, it was moved to what was then the Wagner complex of the SIUE Art Department. And that's where it sat. That orange square is where it sat up until last March. So you can see where we moved it to, just literally a few hundred feet away, there on the Lewis and Clark campus. And the city of Edwardsville signed a long-term lease agreement for 7,500 square feet. So starting in May 2019, I decided I better raise some money to come alongside the city of Edwardsville and help offset some of the costs of moving the station and renovating it and so on. So the first organization I went to was the Edwardsville Community Foundation, which has been fantastic to work with. They set up an account for us so that donations could be made that were tax deductible. We developed a website, nickelplatestation.org, fundraising materials. I formed a board of conductors. Some of you in this room are a member of that board or your spouses. Developed social media, sent letters, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, just a year ago, here we are, March 5th, 2020. Nobody's wearing a mask. Everybody's up in each other's business. Who knew that we were just days away from, shut down? But very grateful to the Rotary Club for their generous contribution to the project. To date, we've raised $60,000, which from a total of 67 different individuals, businesses, organizations. One of those was St. Mary's School. The kids of St. Mary's School made this a project. And so Pam Farrar and I from the Community Foundation came and received a check for $1,355. They collected nickels for the nickel plate, they called it. So it was kind of fun for their school project that year. So March 11th, 2020, literally days before we went on lockdown, we decided the station was moved from its block. So here the move begins. There she goes. And of course, here I am with Schaefer. And I probably shouldn't show this picture, but on the right, you can see he actually was in the truck that is moving the station. So someday he can tell his grandchildren, and this is actually what he said, I was not only there, but I actually helped move it. So that was pretty cool, kind of a special moment for me. And he's talked about it ever since. So there it goes. There, of course, our water tower in the background. And then finally, after 30 years on blocks, the station finally has a home there on the Lewis and Clark campus, just off the MCT nickel plate trail, appropriately. All right, so here's some photos from the renovation. All of the siding that siding that you see on the building was actually put on in the 1940s. And so it was not necessarily historically significant. Although, well, I won't say anything. So when that was removed, you can see originally the station had vertical siding, and that was the original color of the station. It was kind of that gray color. So it was kind of fun to see the vertical siding there. Here's the interior of the station as the demolition began on the inside. This I took on Christmas Eve of 2020. The siding is nearly complete. It's moving along. It's a composite siding. It's not hardy plank, but it's a hardy plank type product. So it's like a concrete, basically, type product. So it's very weather resistant. It's very durable. Doesn't need to be painted and so on. And here you can see these were also taken on Christmas Eve. From the front, and I kind of like that shot with the water tower there in the background, and of course the Johnny on the spot. Yeah, vintage Johnny on the spot. Yeah. Okay, so I took this just a couple weeks ago. Here is the station with not only all the new siding is on, the trim has been painted, the windows restored. It's got all brand new doors. It's in the process of getting new downspouts, as you can see. It's got all new lighting on the inside and out. So it's nearly complete. Here's the inside, just a kind of a shot to show you. We did put a new ceiling in. Literally every time I entered the building and shut the door, black coal dust came from the rafters. And there were times that when I was in this building that I would blow my nose and it would be black. I mean, it was time to get rid of that. That was no longer a safe condition. So in the process, we went ahead and put in some brand new lighting. The barn style pendant lighting matched actually lighting that was in the station. It's not the original, but it looks like it. Again, the new doors are really nice. The old doors were totally falling apart. We did restore the walls and the floors in this room though. This is kind of the front room, what you might call the passenger room, where the passengers would have waited and bought their tickets. And it's kind of hard to see in this picture, but the floors came out beautifully. And there's some neat little secrets in the floors that if you look, you can see dark spots, next to the ticket window and next to the windows where people would have stood for, decades and waited for the train, etc. So it's kind of cool to see some of those features. This is the station agent's office. So you can see the telegraph operator's window there that juts out from the building, and you can see the ticket window. The chimney had to be restored and shored up, but it really looks good. So I wanted to hit a few common questions. One of the questions that I get asked a lot is, "What the heck are you going to do with this thing? What will this thing be?" Okay. Well, I want to dispel a myth. This isn't going to be a train museum. Yes, there will be historical displays. Yes, we're going to tell stories. Yes, there's, going to be some artifacts, but it isn't really a train museum. That's not the point. It's going to continue to be owned by the city of Edwardsville, but it's going to be operated by the Children's Museum through a lease, in the same way that the city of Edwardsville owns the old LeClaire Academy and leases that building to the Edwardsville Children's Museum, and they operate it entirely. The Children's Museum plans on using this for events, activities, special displays focused on STEM related, science, technology, engineering, math, which has a railroad tie-in, so that's kind of cool. But also some traveling exhibits. Children's museums have traveling exhibits that go all around the country at some of these smaller children's museums. In fact, even the Magic House and some of these places have them. So this will be a site where they'll be able to have traveling exhibits, so that it gives people a reason to come back. The Children's Museum has also agreed, and this was something that was important to me, to keep the station open to the public for visitors, for drop-ins during hours of operation if people want to see the station, look at the displays and so on, and even available for tours if there's a tour group coming in, a school group or whatever. Depot versus station. Is this a depot? Is it a station? What's the difference? Well, a depot is just one building. So technically, yes, this is a depot. A depot is a passenger or freight building from which the operation was operated. A station is the entire set of buildings. So in this picture here of our station, you can see not only the passenger depot, but also next to it was an outbuilding, a freight building. There might have been water towers. There might have been a series of other buildings at the site of a station. When we were doing our initial work, we decided to go ahead and call it a station because people are familiar with the term train station, train depot, just didn't have the same ring to it. So to be honest, it was kind of a marketing decision. It's not inaccurate. This was a station, but technically it was also a depot. A lot of people have said, "What's nickel plate? Why is it nickel plate? What does that mean?" Well, it was the name of the railroad. The Nickel Plate Railroad acquired the rail and the stations in 1922, it got the name nickel plate because a newspaper writer in the 1920s said, "This railroad is making so much money, it's like those rails have been nickel plated." In other words, like they've been gold plated, but calling something nickel plated in those days was really, wow. These guys are making so much money. And so the name stuck. They actually adopted it as the name of the railroad. And so that's what it was. So the nickel plate operated this station from 1922 until it closed in 1967. Another common question. Sometimes there are images that call it the Cloverleaf. This is the Cloverleaf Depot or the Cloverleaf Station. So what's the difference? Well, the Cloverleaf Railroad operated it from 1886 until the nickel plate bought it in 1922. So if you do see images of Cloverleaf this, Cloverleaf that, that's the reason. That was the predecessor. And prior to the Cloverleaf, it was operated by a railroad called Toledo, Cincinnati, and St. Louis. And, that was before they had, marketing, but Cloverleaf sounds a lot better. All right. Thank you again, Rotary. Again, thanks to you, literally our train has finally come in. This is a neat picture. This was taken in 1969, the Golden Spike train that went across the country to Promontory Point, Utah, where the Golden Spike was hammered in 1869, connecting the country with rail. So this is when the Golden Spike train came through Edwardsville past past our station. So we are planning a dedication ceremony later this month. We are that close. We're hoping at the end of this month that we'll be able to dedicate it and open it to the public. But if you want to learn more about its history, or if you would like to make a private donation, we are still finalizing the donor plaque. I haven't done that yet, so you can still get your name or your loved one's name or your business on the donor plaque. You can do so at nickelplatestation.org or at the Edwardsville Community Foundation's website. There's a direct link for the nickel plate. And of course, like everybody else, you can find us on Facebook. Questions? Yeah, Ed.
You said you raised 60,000 already. Where are you on your?
Our total goal is 100,000, and so we're short. You know, we still need about 40,000. Now, there are some nice to haves in there. You know, there's furniture, there's signage, there's lighting, but yeah, that was our actual goal. Rich.
Good project, renovation looks great, but there's still some work to be done, right? And that's where there's extra money will go for.
Yeah,
Talk about that and follow up with a little bit about the train exhibit that will be inside.
Yep. So there is, right now we don't have money like for the historical displays. We want to have some wall displays that tell the story. We don't have, you know, money for furniture. You know, all of those other pieces that, you know, that were not budgeted when the city said, okay, we'll renovate this thing. So that's where we need to come along and help raise some additional funds. We are in the process, we also are working with some local train clubs, although we won't have a great big model train display. We will have a model train that goes around the perimeter of the inside of the building. And we would like it to be a nickel plate train so that kids and, you know, of all ages can see what it looked like. And that's just kind of a fun thing to have in a station. So those are some of the needs that we are still, I guess I should be, those are some of the needs that we are still pursuing. There's a lot of other little nice to haves. We'd love to have a platform on the front, you know, and so on, but those are, you know, future fundraisers down the road. Carrie.
Why didn't you put vertical siding back on it?
You know, that was of much debate, you know, whether or not to go back with the original. I think it was just, you know, between myself, Eric Williams, our Public Works Director, and Jamie Henderson, who was the architect, we just decided that that this would look best with the horizontal siding. Yeah, but there was no, you know, definitive reason other than just kind of preference. Tim.
What was the total construction cost?
Total construction cost was about $296,000, but that did include the move, shoring it up, painting, lighting. We had to install an ADA accessible unisex restroom, etc. Jared.
The Children's Museum is going to operate it. Are they, so like the program director of the Children's Museum will be obviously in charge of programming at Depot train stations. I mean, I think it's cool, man. So is there going to be like planned events or planned like kid days or like, I'm just thinking of all the things you can do with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And the Children's Museum is working on that now. They, in fact, when we met with Abby Schwent from the Children's Museum, they are hoping to start programming it as soon as this summer.
Okay.
I mean, you know, pending COVID protocols, et cetera, but.
Yeah, I mean, if it gets used, I think it's pretty.
That's the hope. That's the goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's paying for the utilities?
Well, it's right now that's a part of, it will probably be the Children's Museum. Because I believe, and Tim, do they pay for their own utilities at the LeClaire Academy, or does the city pay for utilities?
I think the city thinks.
Okay, it's probably going to be similar to our agreement with the LeClaire Academy. Yeah.
How many unique photos did you find of the place when you were originally looking? You had probably 3 or 4 of them up there, kind of little. Did you have very many to see? Was there many out there?
Yes, we've found a lot of photos, and people have come out of the woodwork even in the last few weeks with some cool photos of primarily of the outside of the station, which, you know, for a lot of years, you know, for the last 40 years, it hasn't looked great. So they're not flattering images.
SJ
Yes, John.
and Gibbons. I don't see an Edwardsville sign like every station in the country I've ever seen at either end of the building. Have you got those purchased yet?
We have, so we have the original destination sign that goes on the front that would have said Edwardsville. We have the original, but it is in such disrepair that it really belongs in the building as more of an artifact than, you know, putting it back up on this, you know, nice newly, you know, renovated building. So Dave Thomas has done a fantastic job of replicating that destination sign, even with the beveled edges and so on. And again, wasn't in the budget, but a donor came forward and covered the cost of producing that sign. So we do have a sign for the front that will be installed. It's arrived. It arrived last week, so anytime now. We don't have signs, John, to answer your question, for the two ends of the station at this time.
Well, what about a whistle? You're going to have a train whistle there that the kids can.
John is asking about train whistle. Yep, we'll have a train whistle, and we have a train bell that has been donated.
All right, thanks.
Other questions? Again, thank you to the Rotary Club for your contributions. I appreciate it.
Thank you, SJ, and thank you for being flexible. Was going to be doing this via Zoom, and at the last minute made a mad dash to get over here in time, so thank you very much for that.